next. She's from Iran, originally. Shirin Amani Ajari. And she'll be reading from her memoir, and she'll introduce herself, because be short, because your memory will tell a lot, I think.
My name is Shirin Amani Azari, and allow me to tell you a little bit about myself. We left Iran when I was 12 years old in 1985, and I was brought up in Sweden. I have not returned to Iran since then. I've lived in London since December 1998, and the reason that I wrote this book was that when I became pregnant with my daughter Maya, I started to write a memoir in order to deal with my emotions for my losses, from my motherland, my own mother, my mother's mother, and I felt the need to be connected to my memories of pre-post-revolution, war-stricken Iran, but still Iran. I also felt the need to be connected to my memories of my family, and especially my grandmother's tales, stories. Those ancient Persian folklore tales did not only comfort me at difficult times, but they also taught me about life. This was her way of teaching me about life, and what a fun way it was. I wanted to keep them alive and safe for Maya. I also wanted to briefly introduce our traditions, customs, our way of living, festivities, and our history. My mentor, Dr. Josephine Klein, who I've made a tribute to in the book, read the 61st pages and urged me to send it in for publication, and that's how this book was born and came alive 8th of December 2009. I hope that's short enough. So that's my chapter. I'm just going to read the chapter which I've prepared for you this evening. It's from chapter 9. I will try to explain some of the names are mentioned in the book that was mentioned in the beginning of the book. So I will explain them as we go along, and I try to remember to do that. Amu, which is my father's brother, picked me up after school, and after lunch I locked myself in my room as I usually did before an exam. I would not let myself out unless I had to use the bathroom. I would have a meal packed prepared for me in case I got hungry or thirsty. Then I could eat in my room without being disturbed. No rest during study time was allowed, even though I had learned from experience that you can only do so much the day and night before exams. Somehow, I felt better prepared if I went through all that pain and torture. Of course, my mind wandered off now and then and had daydreams about my plans for the future, but I usually picked up from where I had left off and continued. Long after dark, when the clock showed 11, I was making my way to the bathroom to brush my teeth and get ready for bed, when I heard a melancholy song in the darkness. I recognized my mother's voice as she sang a song I'd heard many times before, like when my father's uncle passed away, or the night before my Baba Buzurg mother's father, memorial services here, or when Shahi, my brother, was ill in the hospital. "Mom, why are you singing in the dark?" I asked as I walked towards the sound of her voice. The moonlight through the window dispelled the darkness somewhat, and I could see her sitting by the window looking out. I felt that I had missed part of the day by being locked in my room. I'd heard the phone ringing a couple of times, but I never thought it was bad news. My hands felt wet when I touched her face and realized that she'd been crying. "Mama John, dear Mom, tell me what's wrong," I said, thinking that I hated that song and she would stop. She sighed and finally said that there had been an attack in the south of Iran, one of the worst since the start of the war. I thought of my father, and for a moment I went deaf. I couldn't hear my mom and could barely see her lips moving in the dark, but I could hear the freaking song in my head. I thought about how disobedient I had been during his absence, and I had let him down and disappointed him. I thought of all the rules that I had broken, eating in front of the television, sleeping on the rooftop, eating unhealthy foods such as pizza. I bought snacks from vendors on street corners, homemade and home-packed sour cherries and plums. My dad always warned us about them. You don't know who's made them and where their hands have been. He would say, I missed a couple of piano lessons, forgot to brush my teeth a few times, fell behind in my studies on days after having indulged in movies and snacks, forgot not to speak while I was eating, forgot to use the cutlery in the correct way, forgot the empty bin in my room a couple of times, and once I had even walked home all by myself after having waited an hour for my ride. Finally, my mother's lips stopped moving. Mom, is Dad alive? I asked impatiently, hoping that she wouldn't realize that I had ignored her effort to answer my question. We don't know, darling, we don't know. As I said, the communication lines are cut off. These are difficult times for all of us. She held me in her arms. Mom was my mother's mother, joined us soon with freshly brewed tea and turned the lights on. Honestly, she said, I don't understand you two. You're already planning the funeral and burying the poor man alive. She poured the tea equally in each glass, and I noticed that it wasn't just any tea. It was special tea, Golagov Saban. The tea is known for its calming effects. When it's served, you know that desperate measures are called for, that there is need for more than just comfort, but something less than antidepressants. Did you know that Rostam is the great warrior from the Shahnameh? Malbazar said, your father's name was carefully chosen for him. Your meme, my father's mother, told me that she had him when she was only 17 years old. Back in those times, medications such as antibiotics were not available in Iran yet, and people would die from simple infections. Many infants passed away at birth or later from diseases that went undiagnosed. Your grandparents chose his name very carefully and named him Rostam, the greatest warrior of all times, according to Ferdowsi, as he wrote in his Shahnameh, in the hope that he would survive anything. According to your meme, he has survived a lot during his life so far, and we just have to trust that he will survive it this time too. Tell us about Shahnameh, I pleaded. You don't miss an opportunity, do you? It will take our minds off things. The Shahnameh was written by Ferdowsi, who was a great believer in Persia and Persians. He wrote the tales of Zal, Simurgh, Sohrab, Rakhsh, Rostam, and it goes on and on. The Shahnameh has survived many centuries of war and various political beliefs. You can read the easier versions as children's tales, read the Shahnameh as it is in form of poems, and sometimes, when it's told by experienced and professional storytellers, it's called naqali. People use examples from Shahnameh and learn lessons from it. It's a pride and joy in our nation. Tell us a story from it. Shahnameh is too long. It will take more than an evening to tell it all. It's okay. You can start tonight and continue another day. Is it okay now, is it? It's okay now, is it? Please, Mama Mozart, please. The story goes that Sami Nariman, the great hero of his time, had only one wish, and that was to father a son. He was blessed one day when the news of his wife giving birth to a boy. Zal was born with white hair and body that shone like silver. The handsome baby was kept away from Sam because they all feared his reaction. Finally, the news about the silver-colored, happy, handsome baby reached Sam, and when he walked into the nursery and had one look at the baby, he rejected him. Why have you punished me this way, God? He yelled out. The great hero Sami Nariman will become a laughing stock. This will destroy me. He ordered his men to take Zal far away. His men followed his orders and took him to Albor's mountain and left him on the top of the mountain for the wild animals. Baby Zal lay there in the heat of the burning sun, at times crying and at times sucking his fingers for comfort. Simurgh, a beautiful, wise, and powerful bird with 1,000-colored feathers, was leaving her nest to find food when she saw Zal and picked him up as a meal for her children. As soon as she put him down to be served, she heard a voice. Beware, wise bird. You have in your hands the father of Rostam, the greatest hero of all times. Mother him well. Simurgh named him Dastan-e-Zand. The baby birds grew fond of him and called him Dastan for short. Zal grew to become a handsome young man who eventually learned many skills from his mother, the great Seymour. Soon news of a handsome young man with a reputation for many skills had spread throughout the land and reached Sam. He had not forgiven himself, abandoning Zal, and wanted to find his sons and ask for forgiveness. Sam rode to the Albus Mountain, called for Zal, asking for forgiveness, begging and pleading for his son to return. Seymour heard him and understood that he had come for that son. He explained to Zal that Sam was his father and had come for him, and it was time that he returned to his father. Zal was disappointed. "Have you become bored of me, mother? Do you want to be rid of me?" he asked. "The time has come for us to part, but I will always be with you." Thank you. Just one. Seymour gave Zal one of his feathers and added, "If you're ever in trouble, burn my feather and I will come and rescue you. You're my child and I will always protect you." On that note, Zal greeted his father and followed him home. Sam and Nariman celebrated his son's return and crowned him as Zal Azar, the golden albino. "Enough for one evening," Mom was upset. "You better go to bed. Don't you have an exam tomorrow?" "Huh? What happened to the rest of the story?" I complained. "I told you that it's a long story. Ferdowsi, the great poet, worked on Shahnameh for 30 years. But we didn't even reach the tale of Rostam. All I heard was that Zal was going to father him, which would make Sam his grandfather. You told me to start from the beginning and I will continue another evening. Tell me if Seymour's feather will come to use. And who Rakshis? And, if Sora was the son of Rostam. The Shahnameh is full of tales of great heroes, kings, thieves, and fairies, each tale more fascinating than the other. To answer your questions, Rostam became a warrior at a young age. Raksh was a horse. He had been carefully chosen for the great hero, and he was very protective of Rostam. Seymour's feather will come to use in extreme and desperate need. Sohrab was Rostam's son, but that is a long and fascinating story itself. As I was trying to figure out how to convince her to tell me a little bit more, the phone rang. On the second ring, we all jumped, ran in different directions towards phones. Then I heard my mom shouting in joy. My father had managed to reach the nearest city where the communication lines were intact, and he was to let us know that even though a lot of innocent people had died during the attack, he was lucky to escape. Thank you very much.